Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. We're really excited to invite our guest, Steve Setka, back to the show for part two of men raising babies. And I just want to say a huge congratulations to Steve, who is now a father. And I hear we have a wonderful story to talk about in terms of the welcoming of this new little one into the world. So welcome, Steve. Come and let's hear straight from the man himself about the excitement and everything you've been through in the last less than a week. It's
Amazing,
been,
man.
yeah, welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back. Hey, this is awesome. I got a different background. I got the same sweater, different shirt going on here. It feels like I haven't changed since I slept. No, I'm kidding. I have. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind, man. It's been a week. Now, baby was born last Monday. It's Monday today.
Beautiful.
Yeah, words can't describe the feelings.
Hey, well, we did the show on Sunday, so right after. How many hours after did you welcome the little one?
Oh man, that's awesome. That's a great. I love talking about this, man. You ask such great questions. Let me just acknowledge you for that because you spark great conversation. So this is
Thanks,
part
Steve.
two. Yeah, men raising babies. I'm a man raising a baby here, and it's been a bit of a change for sure. I got my provision hat on for sure because I mean with my InExpress, background and my what I'm doing here for work because I'm back. I'm back at the office, which is at home. So I'm still working, but I'm still at home. Took last week off, but anyways, how long did it take? Man, 33 hours. So water
Wow.
broke in the morning, 1:30 in the morning. Water broke. Wife woke me up. Very exciting. Didn't believe it. It was surreal. Like I told you last week, you said the same thing.
Yeah.
Went back to sleep for a bit. Contractions probably didn't start for about 16 or 17 hours, which was interesting. And you don't know what the timelines are going to be. So
Hmm.
like when we recorded, I think we were probably 3 or 4 hours before contractions starting quite significantly. And then those contractions got stronger until for about the next, I would say 12 hours, 12, 13 hours. And then, the 411 rule in childbirth, I guess you could say, is when you go to the hospital or the birth center, depending where you're going to have your baby, sometimes at home. But the 411 is every 4 minutes, lasting for a minute. What is it again? I can't remember. 411. Yeah. Something to do with the contractions and the
Yeah.
timeline, right? And
Yeah.
you get there. It's escaping my mind at the moment.
Yeah,
So
I
much has
studied it
happened
as
since
well.
then.
I
Yeah.
remember timing and
Yes.
texting our doula, and I'm like, they're
For
like
an
60
hour.
seconds apart. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's like every if you have four, I think it's if you have four contractions in a row that are
Right.
less than 60 seconds,
Yeah.
then it's like it's go time.
For every 4 minutes, lasting for at least a minute for an hour. That's the
There you
411.
go.
There you
There
go.
you go. There you
So
go.
so that probably was about 3 or 4 in the morning
Okay.
when we got to that point, and we said, okay, cool. So 4:45 comes, we jump to Tim Hortons, and we go to the birth center. We got to the
You're a
birth
real
center like,
Canadian, Steve.
yeah, exactly,
Are they
right.
paying you, man?
Yeah, yeah. I got a sponsorship, so I got to say that. It's fantastic. So we go to the birth center and we get there at about 5:15. They didn't even get there till 5:45, so she's chilling, like,
Okay.
contracting every 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay.
And we get in 5:45, 6 o'clock. And I'll tell you, this is very important. We both had a bit of a fear that she wasn't going to be dilated enough.
Hmm.
And they might say, "Oh, you're going to have to go home and come back when you're at this level."
Yeah.
We get in there within 15 minutes. We're in the assessment room, and she's like, "Perfect, sounds good. 7 centimeters. It came exactly at the right time." And we're like, "Oh, thank the Lord," because you don't want to be sent home. That would be kind of like
Yeah.
embarrassing. Not embarrassing,
Yeah.
but like then you got to like wait and come
Yeah.
back
It's a
later.
lot of back and forth. Yeah.
Exactly. So then 6 o'clock, and then the baby was born at 9:50 a.m. So
Okay.
3 hours and 45 minutes later. And this is the best part. We were out of there in 3 hours after the child was born,
Wow.
and we
Wow,
were at
that's
home,
incredible.
which is
Wow.
great, which is so uncommon because
Yeah.
usually they keep you for so long. But we had such
Yeah.
a beautiful birth. Not to brag, but it was like as good as
Oh,
it could
I'm
have
so
been.
happy for you. That's amazing. So,
Thank you.
so like how's your wife doing? How's your child? Do you have a name yet?
Oh, of course, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
we knew names in advance. Wife's good.
Sweet.
She's recovering. Postpartum. I'm an analyzer, man. Nathaniel,
Yeah.
I'm an analyzer. So like I study timelines and I
Okay.
want to know like details of how things work, right? So
Yep.
postpartum, I guess medically speaking, is like 6 weeks or something like that. But I mean, postpartum really is like for however long you would want to define it after
Hmm.
birth. So she's recovering. right? Like she's
Yeah.
going for walks now. She's exercising, stretching a little
Yeah.
bit. She had some damage, let me say the least, which is not uncommon
Hmm.
in childbirth. So
Yeah.
she's resting a lot of the time, but she
Mm.
just wants to like nurse and rear the baby and watch him poop and touch him and all these different types of things. And it's wonderful. 99.5% of the time she's glowing, she's happy, she's fantastic.
Beautiful.
Probably 5% of the time she's very emotional
Yeah.
and crying because that's just what she liked because it's just such a wonderful part of life.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much. One of the things that astounded me so much is the amount of physiological change that the woman's body goes through
Hmm.
in the whole process, and in that period right after, in that fourth trimester, it's called, especially within those first
Yeah.
few days, even there's so much change. The baby is going through huge amount of change too. There's like it's such a saturated period of time of change. And I still remember Luciana like holding my fingers and how small her little hands were, and just looking at the miracle of like her just her, all the intricacies of the form and the miraculous
Yeah.
nature of creation. It's just truly amazing. So how is
It is
Steve doing,
amazing.
man? You say you
It
got
is
the
amazing.
provision hat, you're back to work,
Yeah.
you're already in the flow there. But I know for me it brought up a lot of um, different perspectives and a lot of different feelings. And men don't always talk about
True.
feeling because we're more equipped to like deal with business and make sure things happen, But how are you? I mean, because I know maybe it's even hard to put in words. It's a very ineffable experience to witness this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm well, man. I'm good. I'm surprisingly sleeping quite well. We've had one or two tough nights, I'll tell you that for sure. My wife doesn't sleep much these days. I mean, she sleeps for like she takes like naps all the time. Like
Mm.
it's a different
And
complex,
probably
right?
sleeps with the little one. So, are you not announcing the name, by the way?
No,
I
we
didn't.
are. Sorry, I'll get to that story here in a sec. I didn't get
Yeah,
there yet.
please. Sorry, I'm
I'll
jumping the
let you
gun. I'm
know.
just excited for you.
Comes with a story. So
Okay.
I'll get to that in a second because there's some length and some depth to that. But
Mm.
the um, she sleeps for like an hour or two and then she feeds, right? So
Mhm.
like, I mean, professionally and personally, we've talked to a lot of people who've given us advice that says, no, if the baby wants to feed, feed it, like in this early stages. And I'm like, man, does that not create a lot of dependency? Well, you really want dependency with your
Of
newborn. I
course. Of
didn't
course.
realize that.
It's 100% dependent.
Psychologically, yeah, psychologically speaking, you don't necessarily in life want to create too much dependency in things that are not necessarily good. We should be dependent on each other in community. But
Mhm.
if someone wants something, generally speaking, like you or me, and every time we want something and we get it, that doesn't really teach us resilience. But that rule doesn't really apply for babies.
No, of
So
course not.
like if babies, you want to build trust with babies, from what I've understood, meaning that if they want to eat, you got to feed them.
Mhm.
If they want to sleep, you gotta rest. They gotta rest. They gotta sleep. Like really, what they want is what they get. And it's kind of hard to say no, anyways.
Yeah.
So like that was something that was kind of weird and kind of odd. But overall, I'm doing well. My health is good. I like talking about these things. Hence, I wanted to come on the show and have these discussions, Nathaniel, because you're right. Most people don't ask. They ask about mom and they ask about baby, which is the
Mhm.
priority. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, they don't ask about the man per se because we're not emotionally as engaged in those types of conversations because men more or less talk about the macro, not necessarily the micro. Hence why I'm like back at work a week later, which is interesting because we're short staffed, a few people at the moment. But it's been great. It's been good. But do you have a few minutes so I can tell you the name story?
Yeah, I love to it. I think
Okay,
it's a
cool.
beautiful story, and I know you wanted to come on and capture this kind of before and after as well, and I think
Mhm.
it's really beautiful to just, while you're in the midst of it, because so much like happens within a short window. So
Yeah.
let's hear it, Steve.
Let's dive in here. Okay, so I'll set the context by suggesting that my wife believed intuitively that it was a girl. Okay, so the first thing that happens when the baby comes out, she's crying, she's emotional. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Crazy. We'll talk more about that later on. But she was like crying and she's holding the baby and she said, "I'm so sorry that I've been calling you a girl for 9 months."
Oh,
And it was a boy, of course.
okay.
And we have a little son, which was one of the greatest surprises
Amazing.
of our life.
Yeah.
Of course, obviously. So I always thought it was a boy, but I didn't really know why per se.
Mm.
But I felt like it was a boy for a couple of reasons. First off, I wanted the boy, but I would have been happy either. Of course, that's what we do as humans. And we wanted the surprise.
Yeah.
So my grandfather moved to Winnipeg for the first time, I told you last week, in 65 years.
Hmm.
And there's four generations now of Setka men. And I believe that was one of God's reasons why it was a little boy. He
Okay.
wanted my grandfather to see the name Setka with a man continue before my grandfather passed, which we don't know when. He's healthy, but he's not on his
Mm.
deathbed or anything like that. So
Yeah.
we're kind of seeing the full cycle of life.
Mm.
Secondly, we've been settled on a girl's name for probably 2 or 3 months, and we were
Okay.
locked solid and lockstep on that one.
Okay.
Boy's name, completely different story. We could not decide on a boy's name or
Okay.
multiple, probably for a year and a half.
Wow.
So we had a name that we felt good about recently prior to birth. And like all of a sudden, a couple days before the birth, my wife's like, "So that name we had, do you like it?" And I was like, "I mean, I don't think you necessarily are sold on it." And she's like, "No, not really." And I'm like, "Neither am I." So we called it audible, which apparently is not a commonly known phrase in my family, but an audible is a football reference that suggests you go to the line of scrimmage and you say, "Hey, this play is not going to work for the lineup that we have here. Let's change it
Mm.
last minute." So we called an audible the day before and said, "Hey, if it's a boy, this is the name that we should name him." And we went back and forth with a couple. And my wife said, "Do you know what the name that I was going to be named if I was a boy would have been back in 1994?" And I said, I don't know." And she said, "KADe."
KADe.
And
Interesting.
I'm like, I like that name.
That's a very unique
That's a
name. I've
good
never heard
name.
before. KADe.
Yeah. So she said that. And I said, "That's a great story. I like that name." And we said, "Did we just decide on a name after we had passed, back and forth a couple others?" And we said, "Perfect. That's great. I love it because it's, close to your name. That's what you would have been named if you were a boy when you were born 31 years ago."
Wow.
And I like the name. And she said, "How about we use your name as the middle name? You always wanted a Steve Jr." And I said, I know most people don't love the Steve Jr., but maybe he'll be a Steve Jr. if it
That's
goes by his middle name." So
amazing.
his name is KADe Stephen Setka.
That's so awesome. Well,
And
welcome to the
furthermore,
world,
Nathaniel,
KADe Stephen.
little
Setka.
Cade Stephen. And furthermore, Nathaniel, if I don't mind, share the story behind the name or the
Yeah.
meaning,
Yeah,
because
please.
I know you love that, and you told
Yeah.
me the meaning behind your daughter's name. We did not know the meaning when we named him that, but we were sitting there the day of the birth in the living room when he was like 6 hours old, and we typed it into Chat GPT. What does KADe mean? AI beautifully tells us what it means in Celtic, which is a background that both my wife and I have
Mm.
in our history, in our lineage. KADe means spirit of battle and warrior energy.
Wow.
Now, I want to ask the listeners and I want to ask you your thoughts on this. Is that not the most fitting
Yeah, for you, yeah.
meaning of a name for my wife and I?
For your wife and I, yeah, or for your wife and you, yeah, I'd so see that. You have that warrior spirit, Steve, you know.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah, wow. I'm so thrilled for you. And these are to me these are divine synchronicities. I mean, the fact that it was, I never even heard that name before and it was going to be what your wife's name was if she was a boy. Like, I mean, that's so
Yeah.
so so beautiful. So that means did you ask her parents if that was, if they had intention about that name? Like, did they research it or where did that was it part of an ancestral line?
That's a good question. We haven't really asked them per se, but we will probably. That's a good point. Haven't really thought of that, but
Yeah, you got so much going
I
on,
mean,
man.
yeah, lots going on, and we've had lots of conversations with her mom and dad who were separated, and they live in different provinces, and my parents as well too. And people seem to like it. It's strong, it's masculine, it's outdoorsy, it's natural, which is kind of cool. So I'm not a really big fan of like modern new age names
Mm,
because they sound kind of weird to me, to be
mm,
honest. But this one just hits a little bit differently,
yeah,
and it's simple. It's one syllable, easy to pronounce, easy to
yeah,
spell. KADE. The only thing people might confuse maybe is the C or the K
yeah,
at the start, but we think it's pretty simple. So we're pretty
yeah.
happy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I feel like there is something you're talking about. I feel like I've always felt like my name has carried me, and names do carry meaning. Even the letters and the sound that that a name makes it resonates with our physiology. So I feel like it really does evoke certain qualities in us. My dad wanted to call me, in the Gaspé Coast.
Yep.
There's a rock with a hole in it. It's called Roche Percée,
Okay.
and he wanted to name me Percy, and he had an
Okay.
uncle Percival, and I always joke. I said, if I was called Percy, I'd probably be like double in size, like muscular, and I'd probably have some scars from getting in fights and stuff for defending my honor or something. So I feel like
That's
Nathaniel
amazing.
has served me well. It took me
Yeah.
a while to learn how to spell it because it's like 9 letters long, so it wasn't the fastest to write my name. But no, I'm thrilled for you folks. There's so many little moments that happen in between, Steve, and I've been thinking a lot about you and about our previous conversation, and think about how like we really are all miracles, and we talked a lot about, in the last time we talked about the value of life. We talked about the importance of being one's authentic self and having courage to express who you are and your views. And I think this is an important time for a strong name like KADe. And when you have parents that are coming from a place of care and resilience and wanting to do good in the world, I think that that legacy will be carried forth in that name. I
You
think
bet,
it's
man.
it's
You bet.
beautiful. That's
It,
beautiful.
it's no joke out there right now in the world that you and I talked about live the eternal life rather than the worldly life.
Hmm.
It's pretty tough. It's pretty challenging. So if you're going to come out and you're going to be anything, you got to be strong, right? You got to be a warrior. You got to have that energy, right? So that emotion has really got to be placed on the child, right? Not put too much pressure on them, but praying over top of them that they're gonna succeed in this challenging environment that we find ourselves in.
Yeah. Well, I think the role, traditionally speaking, from an indigenous perspective of warrior is, that word war is in there, but like I love the book The Peaceful Warrior,
Mhm.
because what we stand up and fight for in our life, it's not so much about, I think it's not so much about going to battle, but it's who we go to battle as. Because every day can, especially for men, and Christ in the letters talks about this, like men, they do battle in a way. They go out and they have to orient themselves in a way. We have to learn how to, um, to offer value, to offer service. I know you help people with their freight and getting things, to back and forth to them. It's important service work, and so many men, like I know. Jordan Peterson has talked. He's confronted a lot of the ideologies of the time, where um, there's this pendulum swing in ideologies that can happen where, of course, the first wave of feminism was very important because women did not have they were not seen as equals in a lot of
Right.
ways. And even Yeshua talks about this in the letters, like the reason he didn't talk about mother consciousness as a divine impulse was Jewish people just did not see that as part of their their mythos of the world, that Eve was the cause of the plight and the removal from the Garden of Eden and all this stuff. And so he returns this understanding of balance. And I thought a lot about, I want to bring this up. I think it's an important conversation, because in my years of working in Indigenous wellness, there's so much. I saw it happening, right? And you talk. I think because you're bringing up the what our next generation is faced with and some of these dilemmas, and I'm kind of telling a story full circle because it's like who we enter the world as, if we are at peace with ourselves, and then we can go into battle in this way and dealing with the world in a way that is honoring of who our Father is, like our universal Father, because it's coming from a place of love and peace. And I feel like if anything, the biggest battle is one of consciousness, and there's so much confusion in the world, and um, there's so much trying to get our attention, you know and I feel like when we have clarity and rootedness in these principles, like we talked a lot about as well, then we can go into these spaces and know who we are. And I feel like a lot of the young people, like what we were talking about, like with Charlie Kirk, and this kind of washing away of the concepts of men and women, and talking about birthing people, and I feel like there's agendas behind this to confuse the human race as to who we really are. And I feel like there's always been the in-between people. I mean, there's always been the people who have, had feet in both worlds, and it's not even a sexuality thing. Like there are effeminate men and there are
Mhm.
more masculine oriented women, we call them tomboys, and now we've kind of entered a time where in through education these ideas are being pushed on children, and that I feel like there's a huge uncovering in our society, which children have been robbed of their innocence to just be
Mhm.
children
Mhm.
and to just be themselves, and that I feel when you have parents who can give them give children the values of being just who they are and encouraging that, and that with a place of having that strong example of being a strong man and a strong woman in harmony together, working in the roles that are part of the masculine drive and the feminine drive. That I feel is so important. Anyways, I know I said a lot of stuff, but I've been really thinking about our conversation because I think
Yeah.
it's important, and it's easy to just pick a side like of right and wrong, but I feel like
Right.
there are moral dilemmas in our society, and there's like an undoing of the very fabric of what it means to be a strong man, what it
Mhm.
means to be uh, um, a really loving mother. Women are often pushed, and I love this about you because you want to be the provider, so your wife can be there as the mother for the child. So many women feel pressured to go back to
Right.
work, to make money, and that's very much a masculine drive thing to
You're
do.
right.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
said a lot.
I hear what you're saying. There's a lot to unpack there. Actually made some notes because I love this topic, and you and I got into this, and I think life's a journey, and there's lots of nuance in life, and you realize these things a little bit more and more when you have kids, right? So like when you had your daughter and I had my son, very
Hmm.
recently, almost a couple of years ago now for you, but watching this beautiful young girl grow up, and seeing this young boy, and all you want to do is protect it and
Yeah,
provide as a man that's natural, right? And
yeah.
I reference back to the beauty of like our design, which is exactly what you said. There's 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 wisdom in the fact that some of these principles never ever change. Like we have the perfect guideline and guidebook, in my opinion, right? And you'd suggest maybe in the Christ letters as well too, like but the Bible for me of how to live well, and it teaches us that. So we have a lot of progressivism in the nature of our society these days. I heard a really interesting quote from Bill Maher, political commentator and comedian, the other day. He said liberals typically want to hit the gas pedal, and conservatives are there typically hitting the brakes. And there's got to be a little bit of a mix of both. I mean, obviously, you and I are the product of progressive evolution in nature over our years, right? And you and I being the age that we are at now,
Mhm.
we need to continue to move forward and develop. That's really the essence of entrepreneurship, technology moving forward. But we
Yeah.
have these traits as well in polarity, in masculinity and femininity, which
Hmm.
has energetic values to each of them that you understand when you're in parenthood
Hmm.
and why they mean what they mean because they work, right? And when we
Yeah.
try to change what works, and when you rock the boat and when you don't necessarily need to, you can have unintended consequences, which we're seeing all the time these days with our societies, with our education system, our healthcare system,
Hmm.
with the technology that we have, with the level of communication and relationship that we have in our communities, which are weaker than they ever had.
Hmm.
Right? The most important thing with a baby that I found so far is that it takes a village. And we
Yeah.
all know that, we hear that, but it's not the norm in Western society these days that the village is raising the baby. We're doing it more on our own because, like you said last week, and we talked about this, there's a push towards independency,
Yeah. Yeah.
independence, right? Whereas what should focus on and what's traditionally worked and still works and always will work is interdependence, right?
Totally.
Dependence between people
Mhm.
to move forward,
Yeah.
which is something that we don't have as much as we used to for sure. But studying the masculine and the feminine is not just a factor of men and women. It's a factor of energetics because you said there's more effeminate men, there's more masculine types of women. Yes, men and women both have the masculine and the feminine in their characteristics, traits. It just we'd hope that there would be more of a structural design that where men would be more in their masculine more than they would be in their feminine, and when you change that design, which is intentional and beautiful, and created in the image of
Mhm.
God, you're going to get some consequences that we don't want, which we're seeing,
Yeah.
which I totally agree with. This is all coming full circle, man. Now having a kid and
Yeah.
going through this process, and that's It's something to be conscious of, and that's why our son's name, KADe, is very important, spirit of battle and warrior energy, because he's got to know that there's the truth out there, and we're going to teach it to him, and he's going to learn, and he's going to be open-minded, and we're going to go with that.
Yeah, and I would, just reflect back to you, as a loving brother, that truth that's within him already, that is that miraculousness. Like he
Hmm.
already like I believe KADe already has his soulful purpose of why he is here on earth. He already has that within him, and he is most likely going to be, if not one of your greatest teachers and leaders, Steve,
Yes. I
because
saw your
he's
post
gonna,
on that. I saw your
yeah.
post on that.
Let's talk about this because
Tell me
I've been
more.
thinking about this a lot, and I know we don't have you for too long, but I feel like this is so important for um, our perspective of how we are interacting with children. I've never been one. I always talk to children of a level of comprehension, even though I might use certain words that are perhaps outside of their vocabulary. I will explain those words, and I think it's important that we look at our children as spiritual partners. On
Yes.
this, like you said, we're all created in the image of God. So why do we talk to children in patronizing ways that
Yeah.
downplay their ability to understand us because they can feel us? And I'm not saying like just talk to them like you talk to your neighbor. Obviously, there are children, and we have roles as their guides and as mentors to them, and we have a duty to help orient them in this world in a way that helps them to flourish and thrive so that they can get those essential skills. But they're also reminding us of some of the universal principles and,
Right.
and understandings that we knew as a child. And we look at the adults and be like, what's wrong with you guys? Why aren't you paying attention to life? Like that's at least how I felt.
Yeah, I love this topic, Nathaniel, and I'm marking some things down that I want to talk about. You're right, because this innocence idea with children and babies is wonderful. They are a blank slate, right? Until however long. Kids don't use cell phones. They don't like babies, right? Like kids maybe are more and more these days, which is a conversation for another time.
Yeah, that's a whole other
They're not coming
conversation.
out of the womb,
Yeah.
with a cell phone or an iPad or a television or technology, all these different types of things. They are pure. They're innocent. They
Mhm.
don't know what they're doing. They cannot survive
Mhm.
without their parents, which is, the essence of humanity, really,
Yeah.
which is very, very cool. We jokingly talk about this all the time. My wife talked to me about the spiritual world a lot in our last couple of years of our relationship. And she educated me on the essence of leadership in babies and children. And
Mm.
her methodology, not methodology, her philosophy is that the child, through God's image, chooses their parents.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. So this kid's smart. We believe he chose very smart parents and very good parents.
I love that. I love that,
If
Steve.
I
That's
must say
great.
so myself, this kid also chose his name.
Mm.
So he knows what he's doing and
Mhm.
he understands what he's coming into. And there's so much purpose and meaning and intention. So we believe in this household that we should give more credit to this baby than what you might think. Yes, he
Mm.
does not know a lot and he's new and he's developing and his brain is very blank and he sleeps and poops and eats and that's all he really does. But he's a lot more intelligent spiritually
Mhm. Mhm.
than we might see physically,
Mhm.
which is quite amazing. So all these things that are occurring in his life so far or in your daughter's life are exactly the way that they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say they're perfect, but they are beautiful, they're intentional, and they have meaning.
Yeah.
So when it comes to children being leaders in our lives, that's exactly what I believe that means. And going back to what you said, we talk to kids in a way that we're kind of patronizing them. I don't think we patronize them for sure, but we talk to kids and we talk to babies in a sense of like talking down to them, like they
Mhm.
don't know or they don't understand.
Mhm. Mhm.
I believe they know and they understand more than we think that they do.
Mhm. Mhm.
So like when I'm talking to my son, I might talk to him like this,
Yeah.
right? I'm not always talking to him like he's a baby, goo goo gaga, this, that, daddy,
Yeah.
all those things. I might tone down the language a little bit. I might be a little bit more
Yeah.
calm and a little bit more relaxed. But I see a human with intellectual ability and properties
Mhm.
that's capable already,
Yeah.
right? Who is going to be part of our family forever and who has been born for a purpose. So, we do things with him already that are common. but have a lot of meaning, such as reading the Bible. We're talking about people in the Bible.
Wow, already, eh?
We're singing to him, right? We're putting
Yeah,
music on, like
music is so
worship
important. Yeah.
or energy, right? And putting good sounds and good feels and environment. And my wife talks about this all the time. She really wants to develop this child's immune system
Mhm.
and their nervous system so that he can develop in a healthy and wonderful way. And
Mhm.
how do we do that? We see them as capable and
Mhm.
wonderful beings.
Yeah. Yeah, you're reminding me of how Wayne Dyer would talk, about being proud of his children. And he said, he was always proud of all of his children from the moment they were born. And I think that that is an important sentiment, seeing that, like you're talking about, that innate intelligence that's within them. I mean, it's present just in your son's physiology, like the intelligence that's going on in his body, how he's just picking up so much information already from the get-go, that's so different from being in the womb. But this idea that to just be proud of the beingness of I believe what exactly what you said. So many elders have told me the same things, very much rooted in indigenous perspectives as well, that
Right.
our children choose their parents and they choose the times in which they're
Yeah.
born in order to be a service in a certain way. And it's so resonant there. And that alone, I feel like deserves the gratefulness and appreciation of these little ones for entering our world, bringing the unique vibrational presence that only they have. Your
Mhm.
son already has is unique, and it's a thing to be grateful for too, because I believe it requires courage to come into this world, and we don't talk about that enough. It's like almost like courage
Yes.
is something you earn, but I think from the moment you're
Right.
born, even from the moment of conception, there is a courage to express in the uncertainty of the physical world. It's not a blueprint we come into. I don't think that everything is like this and this and this and this is going to happen, because as soulful as souls, that would be uninteresting.
Yeah.
There's a co-creative dance that we're involved in. Man, I'm really grateful for you. And I love that your both of you are aligned in your values and are able to be those bridges together in harmony, because that's so important. I really do believe that the family unit is the backbone of our communities, and our communities are the backbones of our countries and of the land. And
Yeah.
and
Nuclear
so
family.
I'm super thrilled for you. Hey, I got to tell you this, and also for our listeners too. One of our friends on the island, because we did not have family we were close to, we were following our intuition, and everything went divinely planned, as you said. Even the name, I believe, was like you said. I feel it was so coming from a higher place of inspiration. But one thing that my friend Calvin encouraged us to do was to have a meal train. And I don't know if you've had this.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you have people bring you meals. It just feels so like, the blessings and the foods that are being brought. So I'm glad you're getting some meals delivered to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. We
Okay,
have a chicken
amazing,
pot pie coming tonight from my mom.
amazing.
My sister actually just got here, so I'm going to run here in about 10 minutes, but I got a
Okay,
couple more things I want to mention and talk about.
please.
So
Yeah,
we'll go here for another couple minutes. But
sounds great.
yeah, the food train and the meal train is great. We've had lots of meals. We prepared a lot of meals. The church has been incredible that we go to.
Wonderful,
They're like people just randomly reaching out saying, "Hey, I know you had a baby. It's awesome. We want to bring some food. Where do you live?"
beautiful.
Etc. Like no prompting, like no ad. We didn't even know one of the people. They're like, "Oh, we know what it's like. It's such a beautiful thing. It's so challenging. So let us bring you a meal." And we're like, "Hi, I'm Steve and Casey."
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's
Thank
real
you.
community. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. And that's what the beauty of the church is, which I love. But yeah, man, it is courageous to come into this world. It's hard, but the most worthwhile things are difficult and challenging, and that's a lesson that you have to learn from the get-go. Because if you don't, you're gonna think that you're supposed to be handed things and that life's not supposed to be tough and challenging. The more worthwhile it is, the more difficult it will be. And
Mhm.
we've noticed that definitely. And this childbirth thing and this parenting thing is tough. I tell people all the time, I say, bro, it feels like I'm just constantly making mistakes. And I am, truthfully. And fortunately, none of them are ones that you can't come back from.
Mhm.
But things that I say or do or how I carry the baby and whatnot are not necessarily like proper or correct. But people continually remind me that there's no guidebook, there's no rule book, there's no like you just learn as you go, and there's lessons, and you can never really be like fully prepared. We felt like we were prepared as much as we could, but as long as we're focusing on being present. I'm focusing on my theme of 2025 for the rest of my life, which is masculine, abundant provider. I think we're going to be okay. And like you said, KADe, came at the exact right time when we needed him and when he needed us, which was wonderful. Same thing with your daughter, which was really cool. And now we're just going through some of the, worldly things like getting them set up with the government and all these identification things and SIN numbers. And they just registered for his birth certificate earlier today so that, we can get the paperwork so that he can travel, stuff like that, which is crazy. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And another thing too is all these money things that we're focusing on that you and I talked about, being providers and
Mm.
being income earners so that we can be who we need to be for our families, which is not the only thing, but it is important, right? How much to put away, what to look into for RESPs, setting them up for college, which could be like 18 years away, right? Whether he goes or not, or whatever the world looks like then, right? Having a life insurance policy in plan, which I do, which my wife doesn't yet, but she's working on that pretty soon. And the Canada Child Benefit, all these different things that you have no clue. But these are just things that you just pray on and that you talk about with people and resources, and you get set up. And one of the beautiful things that I think conservatives that I associate a lot with forget about is that God created government. Okay,
Mm.
so government is not all bad. Like there's a lot
Mm.
of good,
Mhm.
and social services are necessary and they're required, and we pay attention to that within reason, because we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket and put all of our dependence and reliance on one entity, because we want the family to be quite involved as well too. But all these things are interesting and they're fun and
Mhm.
they're enjoyable. So anytime I'm focusing on something with the kid or with our baby, and I'm doing it, it's with joy, man, because you're doing it for his future. For
Mm.
example, like I'm looking at ways to invest in this child in terms of education, right? Should I buy some gold for him so that he has an investment to start his nest egg when he goes
Mm.
forward in the future and has some financial backing? I don't know. It's fun, and I'm really, really, really enjoying these masculine things that we can do to provide for our kids.
That's beautiful, man. I'm glad you're having fun, and I appreciate your perspective there because we've kind of coming through a time where I mean there tends to be a lot of focus on the negativities and the evils of the world and stuff, and I appreciate what you're saying. We have to remember that there's also brothers and sisters who are in these places of government, and you're right. Like there's a level of society that needs to be held together. And I also feel like we're part of a paradigm shifts in a lot of ways that people are awakening to greater principles and truths. And if we can be, not adversarial, but hold a higher vision and a higher standard for ourselves and for them, because there is real service that is um, meant to be a mutually reciprocal exchange when we have people in offices and one of
Mhm.
the things that I really wish to see. I remember growing up as a young boy and being told, well, politicians just lie, they just say whatever they can get into office and then they don't hold up the truth. And I want to see us talking about these things more in the light of what you just said. It's like, let's hold one another to higher standards. Like if you're making vows and promises and you want to be a leader and a public servant, well, I think there needs to be an expectation that you do your best to uphold your word and not just and not
Yep.
not create this oh well whatever everyone does it kind of low standard of life. So I love that you are seeing this. It is very much of a fatherly perspective to. That's why basically we're doing Light Her Vision, is because we want to do everything we can to evoke higher visions for
Yes.
people and for our world, so that we can create the world that is more easier to harmonize with for our young ones growing up, and for us too, but
Yes.
primarily for the children, because it is
Amen.
our responsibility for creating that. So I
Amen.
love that, Steve, man. I love your
Amen.
positivity. I love your energy. I'm excited for you, and hearing you kind of paint this whole big picture of the future and stuff. I do really encourage you to just that presence that you talked about, keep coming back to that, man. Because like I know this is your first little one. You're gonna have more. I bet you're gonna have a whole little households of
That's the plan.
Setkas jumping all over you, and like they're gonna be wrestling with their dad and stuff. I can
Oh
see it.
yeah.
And that presence that you talk about, that's the number one thing, because we can get caught up in all the plans and all the duties and all that stuff. But the more that, especially conscious parents can be present in their children's lives. So many children don't have their dads there all the time because they're working, 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 trying to make that happen.
Mhm.
And there's new and evolving ways that we can make that happen. And I hear what you're saying about community. The more that we can be interdependent and work on, hey, how can we collaborate? How can we like prioritize quality time with our families and do things together in new ways? Because we have new technologies arising, we have new ways of connecting. There's going to be all kinds of new ways of collaborating and getting our children involved in these things. Because I feel like a lot of men provided for their families, but they weren't there a lot to impart those skills.
Right.
So I love that you're able to like work from home and to do a lot of that coordination piece. I'm just thrilled for you, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's tough. It's challenging. I do agree. I love what you're saying. Kudos to you as well for doing this as well. The work from home thing's fantastic. Being present, being available. You're right. A lot of children don't get that blessing. I am very fortunate that I had a great father and a good mother who were around. My dad, limited his career prospects and potentials more or less because of that. He wanted to be at all my sporting events and games and
Beautiful.
extracurriculars and stuff like that. It's kind of a balancing act, which is kind of tough and kind of challenging because it's harder, I think, in this situation to be productive and do the best work that you can and live up to
Mhm.
your full potential when you're at home. And there's all the distractions like at home and the baby, etc. But a little bit of both for sure. But being present, and that's the most important thing. I do want to mention as well too one other thing before we run because I got to
Yeah.
go pretty soon, and I
Yeah, of
want to hear
course.
your perspective on this. I really just want to acknowledge women in
Mhm.
general in the world and your wife. Is she your wife? Sorry,
Well, funny
not
story.
married technically.
Well, I proposed to her the week before we found out she was
Amazing,
expecting. So we were
amazing.
gonna rush it, but we're not. We're coming from the spiritual lens, and her
Yep,
dream is really to be married on the Amalfi Coast of Italy.
amazing, amazing.
So we came to peace with it instead of pushing it because her brother was also getting married. We said, you know
Yeah,
what? We know we're married. I mean, we are technically common law married,
yep,
but instead of like we know we have this commitment, so let's honor that and
yes.
let's do it in the way that is right. So
I,
that
I love
commitment is
that.
there.
I
Yeah.
love that, and that's fantastic, man. For the sake of the argument, I'll say your wife. I mean, she
Yeah,
practically,
I call her my wife all the
and you
time.
guys exactly, and
She's
you guys
right there in
have.
the background smiling at me. I want to come
You
say
guys-
hi and congratulations to Steve.
thank you very much.
Oh
But
no,
I just wanted to say, Nathaniel, with women and my wife and your wife specifically, for argument's sake, that they're incredible. And the only way to put it into words is to say, wow, like what they're capable of. And I know you hear this. I heard this many times before. I was watching what occurred on Monday morning, and you probably heard it a lot too. And you don't really know until you actually go through it. And we had one of the most incredible experiences you probably could have had. Like the
Mhm.
complications were so minimal, right?
Mhm.
There weren't any challenges or issues in terms of health or reasons why we'd have to go to the hospital from the birth center, which is always possible. And it wasn't very long. Like we were at the birth center for a total of 7 hours, which was amazing. And it was so quick and so fast, vaginal birth. And it was just like watching the whole process
Mhm.
is earth shattering. It's the most incredible
Yeah.
thing I've ever seen. So I like reverence for women is cutting them short in
Yeah.
terms of what their capabilities are. They're 10 times stronger than any man on this planet.
Mhm.
And I just want to put that out there for the world and the energy because I pray that all men, not all men, but whoever's like wanted to have babies or if they love the concept of life
Mhm.
to have the privilege
Yeah.
to go through that experience. It's incredible watching it happen, watching the contractions,
Yeah.
watching in the tub, watching on the bed, being there, not being helpless, right, and not
Yeah.
being able to do much other than be emotionally supportive, spiritually supportive, maybe a little bit physically supportive,
Mhm.
and just be a task doer around the room
Mhm.
when this is all happening, when the miracle of life is beginning, or I guess you could say not beginning because life starts at
Yeah.
conception, but
Certainly
coming
a doorway.
right the
It's a
doorway, the
big, yeah.
portal. So
Yeah.
what's your quick thoughts on that before we wrap it up?
Yeah, you know what? I so appreciate you bringing this up into the conversation. It's so true. I mean, watching Julia transition from um, being my beloved and a daughter to her parents to becoming a woman is such a coming of age that not all women get to go through, and watching her do it in her sovereignty, and really being so present in the process and enduring the physicality of it because you're right, like the level of we're built differently. I'll say like men and women are both strong and we're designed to be, but there is a power in women that is just is awe-inspiring. And it's this strength that comes from just such a deep well of love, and it really is indescribable. So I love how you picture that. I feel like we don't have a lot of those thresholds in our current society. Like in the past, like women when they first started their moon time would go through ceremony in
Mhm.
different cultural ways, and men would often go through their vision fasts as they're becoming men. But we don't have that a lot in especially mainstream culture. And
Yeah.
I feel like for women, it is such a a leap into that new thing. So yeah, it so amazes me, and I feel like so many more women are recognizing their sovereignty and their power in this, and are confronting some of the imposed authority figures that have been put on them from the Western medical model of things, that that there are people in trench coats who should have more to say about how they welcome their child into the world than they
Yeah.
do. And so we're seeing a trend, like women are rising in their consciousness. And this is why I feel like what we were talking about earlier is so important, that men and women rise together in their, for lack of better terms, spiritual maturity, so that they can be equals together. Because we're not meant to be, in one case dominant or another. I'll end with saying this. One thing that I've been contemplating for a long time was Mantek Chia wrote a book on it's a Taoist perspective on masculinity and femininity. And if you look just at the physiology of our bodies, men have yang genitals and
Yeah.
yin hearts, and women are opposite. They have yang hearts, and they have yin genitals. And Christ talks about this in the letters too, and how important it is when couples are engaged in trying to conceive for children, or even just in sex in general. It's very important that we come to a place where we have unconditional love for one another. Because when sex is just about gratification, or it's just a physical act of taking, and it's not done in that
Mm.
harmony that recognizes that flow, it creates imbalances in our consciousness. And
Mhm.
what Mantak Chia says in that book is that all the problems of our world, the wars and everything, are a macrocosmic expression of that, what is happening in the intimate relationships between men and women. Because if men do not know how to harness their sex drive, because
Right.
we can become depleted, because men are not taught that they don't have to ejaculate to have an
Yeah.
orgasm.
Right.
So if men are not cultivating what they can do because the woman is from a place of yin nature, and she can receive like infinitely, yet the man's energy can be expelled rather quickly if he has not mastered that. Then
Right.
he can start being intimidated by that subconsciously, and try to use his physical prowess, because men are just built with testosterone, and we're physically mostly stronger than women in
Right.
general. If he will try to impose his strength upon her. So it's only when we recognize, and so I love that you brought that up, when we recognize the strength of the woman, and it evolves into the strength of it's the magnet of the home. It's the heart of the family. The woman, she has an emotional strength that typically men don't have either, right?
Yeah.
And so but if she's not supported by a man who sees that strength and honors her and uplifts her, and if that man is trying to dominate her, it deteriorates the family. So I love that you brought that
Yeah.
in. Shout
That's
out to
awesome,
all
man.
the strong women, and to the mothers, and to all the women in our society who are like, literally, when my daughter was born, I was like, she's carrying all the eggs of the future generation already.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that amazing? Like, that's a
It
miracle,
is
you
it
know?
is amazing. It is a miracle, and you're absolutely right for sure, man. I would like to put more focus on this as well too. I love what you're saying, and I appreciate this. And we have such a mission ahead for you and I as friends here to go forward to teach and
Love it, brother.
educate and to guide young men on these processes
Hmm.
and ideas. Because you're right, it's twisted, and society's done such a great job, messing it all up. New dads, expectant dads, and aspiring dads and fathers is my focus going forward when it
I love
comes to
that.
masculinity. And I'm very excited to, start on that journey. We're gonna build a brand around that as part of the Steve Setka show in terms of what I do, freight, faith, sport, and fatherhood
That's
and being,
amazing.
it's gonna be fun. So I gotta run here soon though,
Yeah,
Nathaniel.
brother.
Wrapped up.
Yeah, hey, I hear you. Go spend time with family. I don't want to use any more of these precious moments. All the best to you and all your family as they surround your wonderful KADe Steven Setka. Welcome to the world, KADe, and we're all praying for you and love and blessings to all of you that are touched by that beautiful new presence in the world. So thanks
Thank
so
you
much
for
for
having
coming
me.
on again and taking some time to be on the show. And I so love seeing these before and after shots, Steve. So thanks again. And yeah, anything you want to say to the audience before we leave?
Hey, just Toba_Steve on the Instagram. We're putting a lot of stuff on there, reels and content, and I'm putting stuff on LinkedIn, the Steve Setka Show, and my name, Steve Setka, on LinkedIn is where you can find me. So I say to the Lord, and Savior Jesus Christ, thank you and amen.
Wonderful, Steve. All right. Well, thanks so much, brother. I'm just gonna invite Luciana to give us a farewell here. Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.